Good morning, members of the press. I would like to welcome all of you in the UIT press conference when we are commemorating the International Youth Day. Before you is Kiirya Ismail, the UIT president. On my left is Aroko Babra, the UIT Secretary General. On my right is a lady from Makerere University, the Vice President of the UIT chapter Makerere University, Madam Shamil. And at my back, I have my Vice President, Honorable Helen Sayun Ashaba. Then the gentleman also behind is the Organizing Secretary, Lubaga Division, Mr. Kasivante Paul. So we are here to address you upon the International Youth Day, when we are also joining the rest of the world to commemorate the day. We would like, first of all, to join the rest of the world to congratulate our gold medalists who managed to bring back medals to the Republic of Uganda, despite the fact that they went through a lot of struggles ever since they were building their talents, which made them to bring the medals. Back to the day, in 1999, the General Assembly endorsed a resolution to recommend the World Conference Ministers of Youth in Lisbon on the date of 8 to 12 August 1998. The 12th August should be commemorated and should be declared the International Day, the International Youth Day. And as Uganda Young Democrats, we also here to join the rest of the world to commemorate the day with other young people. International Youth Day, it is a day which provides an opportunity to celebrate the young people's views and initiatives on a global scale. The theme of the International Youth Day 2021 is to transform food systems, youth innovations for human and planetary health. With this aim, it is looking at highlighting that success of such a global effort, which can be achieved without a meaningful participation of young people. Today, the 12th August 2021, Uganda Young Democrats is joining the rest of the world to hold a crucial role working towards the implementation of commemorating the International Youth Day. This day was announced by the Secretary General in September 2019, which requires people's action, inclusive of youth, to generate an unstoppable movement pushing for such required transformation. As UID, we don't see this achievement to the side of the young people. The above, we saw the implementation of the President about the continued closure of schools and institutions of higher learning on the side of education. And this is where many young people get innovations and get skills to transform themselves and to develop themselves into an effective world. We saw the President has continued to close the schools for the last 18 months continuously. And the closure of schools, it is only for the local schools and for the local students. We are aware that it is only one section of young people who are not going to school. We are aware that it is only one section of students of institutions of higher learning who are not going to institutions of higher learning because of this lockdown. But we know that we have a section which actually has not closed for the last 18 months. And for them, they are schooling normally. For them, they are going to school normally, and they are having the normal lectures, just because they have the capacity to handle the situation which can enable them to get the reasonable education. We have the Minister of Education and Sports, Janet Kataham Museveni, but she's like actually not a mother. She's like not a parent. And she's the one actually in charge of all the schools and institutions of higher learning. But again, she has continued to close the schools and institutions of higher learning. Ladies and gentlemen, the continued closure of schools and institutions of higher learning, it is going to affect the young people more than the elder. When you try to count 20 years to come, 30, 40, 50 years to come, those who are implementing the system of the continued closure of schools and institutions of higher learning, they would have diminished. Some would have died, some would have moved that they could not even see what is going on. But it is us, the young people, who are going to continue being affected by the system of closing the schools in the Republic of Uganda. So this is creating two classes, a class of the illiterates and a class of the literates. A class which can manage the rest. But we find that the two classes, we have the class of the rich and the class of the poor. Institutions of higher learning have professions like doctors, engineers, and other professionals. But we have some students who have gone for those professions, and up to now, they have not gone back to study or to complete. Now, in 20 years, 30 years to come, how do you think the education sector, how do you think the field is going to look like? We therefore recommend that we saw that the president only opened a few classes, and just before stabilizing, there came into a second wave. Now we are asking ourselves, what if we get more two waves to come? Are we not going to open institutions of higher learning? Why should Ugandans suffer because of the mistakes being done by the people in government? We are not the reason why we are having COVID. We are not the reason why they have not vaccinated the people of Uganda. But we are suffering because of some people who are eating some money and making some silly mistakes to the Republic of Uganda. We do appreciate the fight against COVID-19, but by now, most of the Ugandans would have been vaccinated, because on the 10th Parliament passed around 98 billion to buy vaccines. Currently, the 11th Parliament has passed around 400 billion to purchase COVID-19 drugs. And we are presuming, we are anticipating, the president, since he's now in the other class of the rich people, is not minding about these other people. And he's not minding about that money which was actually passed to vaccinate the Wananchi. Those are the Ugandans, the poor Ugandans. Therefore, as Uganda Younger Democrats, we say that we should just work upon staying with COVID-19. Because if we get more two waves consecutively, shall we not study because of the waves? The sports fraternity. There is a lot of problems. We are celebrating the International Day, the International Youth Day. But you find that most of the young people are in sports. Government has no any initiative of developing sports. We are seeing that government has a policy of just jumping on those who have actually developed their talents. But it doesn't participate into developing their talents up to the level of getting gold medals. But it also just waits like a leopard which is waiting for an animal. If it comes, then it just eats. That's how the government operates. The sports of Uganda needs a policy whereby a government can intervene into a young talent right from grassroots up to the level of development, of getting a gold medal. But let us not wait for the gold medalists and just grab them from the international airport, then we celebrate them. Let us also try to help them develop their talent right from their primary schools up to getting the gold medalists. We saw our gold medalist, Mr. Cheptegei, losing hope of the government policies of developing the talents of the athletes. So for him, he's actually constructing his own field. Imagine Ugandan athletes are training from Kenya, the neighboring country. Currently, the talent of football, in case we get any international football here in Uganda, we have actually to go to Kenya because we no longer have an international field. Nambole is no longer out of the standards. It is out of standards. It no longer has the facilities to man the capacity of the international grounds. So we are seeing that government has no policies. It has no policies to develop the young people with the initiative and effective administration of the young talents we have in the Republic of Uganda. There are a lot of young talents we have in Uganda, but government has no plan to develop the young talents. Let's develop policies. I've just talked about having a policy where government can identify the sportsmen, either in football, athletics, whatever, from grassroots up the level of getting a gold medal. But let us not wait for gold medals at the Entebbe International Airport, then we grab them because we want to achieve, to get fame out of that. As UID, we are going to launch a campaign basically against this continued closure of schools, because we are seeing that it is going to actually affect more of the young people. We need actually to enlighten our fellow young brothers and sisters about the impact of the continued closure of schools and institutions of higher learning. We don't know when the schools and institutions of higher learning are going to open for the poor people. Because for the rich, they have capacity to go outside the country. For the rich, they have already vaccinated their children from abroad. For the rich, they already are influencing some health workers to vaccinate their students. And now, government has no plan so far to vaccinate these young people. Now, Ugandans, how long are we going to stay in this situation when we have young people who have been in the class for the last 3 years without moving forward? How are we going to manage the education sector when we only favor the rich people and not favoring the poor people? So we are here as Uganda Young Democrats. We need to enlighten all the young people in Uganda about the impacts of closing of schools. This issue is neither political nor religious. And we are calling upon our brothers in crime, the police. Once we are carrying out this campaign, we also are helping your sons and daughters, because this program is also affecting actually all of us. For you are just protecting these people, and they actually are trying to maneuver the system, and they benefit, yet for us we are not benefiting. So those who think that it is political, it is not political. But this is a national issue. It is a national issue which is affecting each and every person. I'm therefore calling upon all the young people in the country of the Republic of Uganda to be vigilant about our government. We are going to move to most of the districts to enlighten the young people to rise against this impunity of closing down schools and institutions. As UID, we can't keep quiet. This is a youth issue. It is not actually an elder issue. Old people are already in comfort zone. But for us young people, we are the one going to be affected by those who are half-baked by the poor system of Mr. Museveni. We are therefore calling upon the Education Minister, Honorable Janet Museveni, to work upon this issue in the next 1 week. Otherwise, we are continuing the candle to burn in other duties so that we can enlighten our fellow young people so that they can be in position to fight for their rights. Thank you very much. Maybe my colleague from Makerere, I don't know whether you have something to speak.
I have a question.
Yes.
My question is about education. You have been reading the Book of Lamentation. As young Democrats, if you read or open or write the Book of Acts in regards to reopening schools amidst the pandemic, what are you going to write?
Thank you very much. Now, this time it is not a book of lamentation. I've just told you that we are giving the Minister of Education, Honorable Kataha Museveni, 1 week to revise his policies. Plus his boss, Mr. Museveni, because for them they have an opportunity of discussing the matter even at the midnight, even at 2, so that we can see how we can solve this matter. In 1 week, we are launching this campaign so that we can see that every young person in the Republic of Uganda, in every district, can stand up and reclaim the human rights which they are being violated by this government. I'm assuring you this time, it is not a lamentation, but it is an action. And this is not an issue of political, it is an issue of the youth. This is a matter concerning the youth of the Uganda. So those who are in our category, you know what I'm talking about. In 1 week, we are calling you again to launch this program. And we are starting with the neighboring district, Kampala Metropolitan and Wakiso. Any other question?
Yes, just two for me, sir. Thank you for the press conference. But if you're talking about closure of schools and affecting our country or the youth, can you elaborate some on how this issue is going to jeopardize Uganda's workforce in the future? And also, as we celebrate this day today, kindly inform us as Uganda Youth Democrats, the members of this group, what value are you adding to this country as youth? How are you constructing this country? How are you helping in the development of Uganda? Away from addressing the press, what other things behind the press conferences are you doing to develop this country? Also, when you talk about calling upon youth to raise up against or fight for their rights, how exactly are they supposed to do this? Are you calling up these youth to ban tires in roads? Is that the way to go? Are you calling them to have armed strikes or anything? Kind of elaborate someone who's
In addition to that, I would like you to speak to the nation, especially the youth. I was speaking about the Book of Lamentation. Between you and me, we know that schools were closed due to the pandemic, which is still present with us. So if you're calling upon the Ministry of Education to reopen schools amidst the pandemic, as young Democrats, I want you to come up with a tangible solution that you bring forward to the ministry to base on for them to reopen the schools, rather than lamenting.
Okay, thank you very much. One is trying to, I've had a question of how this continued closure is going to be affecting the workforce in the future. I've just told you that the schools and institutions of higher learning have been continuously been closed, totally closed for the last 18 months. We have students who have been who were in the 3rd year. For example, they are doing medicine. And when they do medicine, ever since 2020, up to now, they are doing medicine in third year. We are now, the Ministry of Health is now telling us that there is another wave which is coming. There is another third wave. Now that means that we are going to continue to be in the classes where we are, and the workforce actually is not actually enough. We are already seeing the strikes from health workers, when actually they are not being paid well, and when actually we also see that our clients in the health institutions, they don't have enough health workers, and now the system is continuing to lag behind the workforce of the young people, or those who would have helped to improve on the workforce in the sector. Now, in the long run, we are seeing that by 2030, when we go into with this system, we are seeing that actually the workforce, the professional workforce, is going to be substandard. For example, the teachers, the lecturers, the health workers, they are going to be substandard in that line. So we are seeing that one is again affecting. What to do? The alternative to the government. We are saying that we are not the ones who are responsible for this pandemic. We are aware that the rest of the world, some countries have already opened up. And the country has injected a lot of money into getting the vaccines. The government currently has no program of vaccinating the students. Now we are seeing this program is going to continue up to 2020, 22 or 23. Now, shall we not study? Are we not losing? In the long run, we are seeing that we are losing. We are getting substandard professionals in the outcome. And for us, we seek the service from these professionals. We don't have capacity to go to these first-class schools. We don't have capacity to fly outside to Germany and the other countries which have good health conditions. We don't have actually that capacity to handle our health without going to the government institutions. Now, we are seeing that this situation is making actually the Ugandans, most of the young people, suffer a lot in this pandemic. We know the pandemic is there, but there are so many other alternatives where we can study through this pandemic. Isn't Parliament sitting? Are the local government sitting? How many are they? We have schools actually who have big numbers, yes, but we can have a policy of dividing them so that they can study. On top of that, the vaccination. Where are the vaccines? Why are we just lamenting to actually not to borrow, but just to get free vaccines? Uganda is just keeping money just to get free vaccines. We want the government to utilize the funds we give them to borrow the vaccines, to get the vaccines, so that they can vaccinate each and every Ugandan in the country, and we have a free country.
As we celebrate the day, behind the press conferences, what are you Democrats doing to develop this country behind there? What are some of the things you do in your organization with your members?
Now, Uganda Younger Democrats, it is the youth wing of the Democratic Party. And it is always there to try to agitate for some of the rights which are being denied by government. Now we are saying that we have a right of education. Everyone has a right to go for education. Now we are agitating on behalf of our young generation that yes, schools should be open. We should have a framework which can make actually schools and institutions of higher learning to do what? To go through the situation, or to teach the young people who are in the sector. So our role here, we are now agitating on behalf of the young people, who are voiceless, down in the villages, even in towns and everywhere, who have no capacity to handle the situation. So let me call upon my colleague from Makerere University.
Mr. President, you have not answered my question. Let me make it easier for you to understand. What interventions as young Democrats are you fronting to the Ministry of Education to reopen schools? For instance, for kids to be reopened, they brought interventions forward. have the sanitizer, ventilation, stuff like that. So as young Democrats, what interventions are you fronting to the Ministry of Education in order to reopen schools?
Okay, thank you. In case maybe I still fail to answer your question, someone else will answer.
Because you are talking about the vaccine.
Yes.
Between me and you, we know that there is a global shortage of the vaccine.
Yes.
There is money that was given to the National Drug Authority, 80 billion.
Yes.
Minister of Finance released 495 billion
Yes.
to buy the vaccines, but there is a global shortage.
Yes.
So you're calling for the reopening of schools, okay?
Yes.
Amidst the absence of the vaccines. So, as young Democrats who are advocating for the opening of schools, what interventions are you bringing forward to the Ministry of Education?
Now, one of the interventions is the interventions which actually have been applied to open the arcades in town can be some of the interventions in these schools. Remember, we have schools, we have government schools, and they have students. So we are calling upon the Ministry of Education to come up with a strategy which can be in position to distance the young people who are in these schools. So that maybe in case the school is having a lot of students, let actually the school divide. In case maybe they say that some students are learning in the morning, then others should come in the afternoon. But so that we can see that this education is going on, other than just totally closing down. I don't know whether I'm on your point. So that's what I'm trying to call upon. The Education Ministry should come up with an intervention which can enable these schools operate amidst this pandemic without actually affecting us totally. Because we understand that this pandemic, it may go even for some 2 years. Now, if it go for next 2 years, 3 years, are we going to be in the same section when actually students are at home just getting pregnant, they are getting spoiled and everything? So we are losing as young people. Even the nation is losing. So let the Ministry of Education come up with some interventions to see that these schools can operate just like the parliament is operating, just like these arcades is operating. When you try to go to the schools, actually,
where in Uganda do we lie as the youth? Are we given priority? Because realize that as the youth, we are the most resourceful people when it comes to the national workforce. We are the biggest contributors to the labor systems in this country. But when we've been brought up to believe that our success and our future lies in education, but then for 2 years now, for 18 months now, education is not being given priority. We ask ourselves, when then is the government going to come out with means for us to continue with schools? If this pandemic does continue for 2 more years, am I going to spend 4 years studying 1 academic year? We need intervention when it comes to such things. We need the government to come out, the Ministry of Education, to give us a way forward in as far as our academia is concerned. When you lock us down for 42 days and then the vaccines still come out and the students are not being given priority, then what is in it for us? So we come out and we are demanding that the Ministry of Education comes out and gives us a clear way forward. Tell us that we are going to be home for the next 2 years if that is it. But then, and there are things that you can do. If you opt for online learning, why then are you imposing 12% tax on internet? If that is the way you're giving us to study. If you're teaching on TVs and you're teaching on, radios and everything, why then are electricity bills still this high? We find that even the alternatives that we are being given are actually being added onto them hindrances. Why are you taxing internet if you're telling us to study online? Then, if you can't do that, then why not have first opening of schools? If we are saying year 2s are coming for these months, let them come and study, let them go back home. You cannot tell us that people in Chikubo can, observe SOPs and people who are actually going to school to learn cannot observe SOPs. It does not make sense to us. So we need the Ministry of Education, Ministry of Health to come out and give us a way forward. If that is not done, then we shall need to use the language that they understand, which we all do know. Thank you so much.